Let me start. Get into trouble if I don't do that.
No, for sure. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be here again just to talk a bit about, and I think this time of the year as well is also probably a very good time and space to be talking about immunity because as we're seeing, a lot of people around, and just because of the different changes in our weather where our bodies are becoming stressed, our immunities are being put through their paces. So it's a very apt time, I think, to be talking about some of the Neolife products and immunity. So, you know, what is immunity? And I think I'm just going to go through some of the basic discussion about immunity to begin to understand, not going into huge depth about it because I don't think it's really necessary. But immunity is basically the body's defense system against infections, toxins, and diseases. And that's the thing is, everybody normally sees immunity as this thing, protection against infection. It's also the protection against those other stresses that we put on our body from the outside. And that's why it's so important, and why weather and what's happening in our environment is also important. But it also includes our innate or natural immunity and then the adaptive. So two different areas that are responsible for our overall immunity at the end of the day. And the white blood cells, our antibodies, our lymphatic tissues all work together to identify and neutralize the threats, whatever our body is being exposed to. These are the basic things that detect what's going on and respond to it to obviously protect our bodies. A healthy immune system quickly detects what's going on or pathogens before the illness actually develops in order to try and prevent it. And if your immunity is obviously weak, you don't get to that stage and you then get sick. And that's why developing and maintaining a strong immunity is just so important. So why should we focus on immune support? Daily, we're exposed to toxins. Our bodies are under stress. We have chronic stress that we are exposed to on a daily basis. Our nutrition is also poor from the perspective that very often we may not understand how to eat well, but also just the nutritional content of our food has just been depleted over the years. And all of those things can weaken the immune system and drop this thing, as we in the health arena look at, is resilience. How resilient is your body? How resilient are you to the stresses that your body is exposed to, that you can actually prevent yourself getting sick either from an infective pathogen or from the stresses that come about, that we can then experience other illnesses than infective diseases. And the biggest proportion of our illness is in fact not the infective illness, it's in fact the lifestyle types of illness. So that's why immunity is so important, because the greater proportion of the illness that we see is in actual fact coming from the other stresses than pathogens, which are in our environment all the time. So a strong immune system is essential for both resisting infections and maintaining overall health. And whole food supplements can fill the nutritional gaps and provide us with a natural defense. And that's why having powerful supplements like the Neolife products available is what's so useful and helpful, for us, and what we can promote to others. So just understanding a little bit more about the innate versus the adaptive immunity. Innate immunity is that natural immunity. It's that first line of defense that's present from birth, that we get a lot of what is in our innate immunity from our mothers, from whatever happens through the whole gestation period and then through to the birth, and that's why natural birth is often, well, it's basically more valuable, because you are in fact picking up more of the natural biome which you need to help protect you at the end of the day. So that natural or innate immunity is so important. It also includes the physical barriers, and I think a lot of people forget about the skin, the mucous membranes, and areas where you can in fact pick up a lot of your infections from. So it's important to keep those things healthy. And then, the other parts of our immune system is the inflammatory response, which people see that often as a negative thing. It's our body's way of beginning to protect ourselves. And that's why even with injury, first line of defending yourself is having that inflammatory response. And we very often tend to throw an anti-inflammatory at it immediately. It's the wrong thing to do. We need to let our bodies do some of what it needs to do, and then maybe intervene at a slightly later stage. And then, of course, things like the phagocytes and so on, which help envelop a lot of the pathogens that enter into our body. So it's a rapid response that we have, but it's very often not pathogen specific. So in other words, an infective, bacteria or virus, whatever, our innate immune system is often not specific to that. And it's not a bad thing because we have a very strong general response. And the more exposure we have, for instance, through the birth canal and as we grow, the exposure that we have to different pathogens obviously trains this innate immunity, and we become more able to resist infection and so on. But it's also strengthened naturally by things like adequate sleep, regular exercise, making sure we have a healthy gut microbiome, things like the omega-3s that we take, and also, reducing chronic stress. All of those things contribute at the end of the day to us having a better immune system and a better response to the stresses around us to resist infection and illness. Adaptive immunity is this thing we have, is this learned immunity, and a little bit of what I've already intimated to is that it develops over time through exposure to different pathogens or vaccines. And I think it's really important as well to understand the original and the actual legal definition of a vaccine is literally taking an infective organism, introducing it into the body, and then it trains our body to be able to respond to that specific pathogen. A lot of what they're doing now in the development that they've done with many of the vaccines we have today, they're not vaccines in the true sense. They are other types of therapy, and that's a whole different subject. Some of the adaptive immunity also involves a lot of other more complex things, because we always think of it just as antibodies, but there are things like the T cells, B cells, and other specific pathogen memory areas within our body that are responsible for protecting us against certain different things. And that's why I say it's a much deeper, there are like almost 8 or more levels when we're looking at the full immunity of our body, not just the antibodies as most of us have learned in general. So it's a much deeper thing than that. And that's why it's important to keep building this through various areas. One of them is things like being enhanced by adequate intake of things like zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, and antioxidants and phytonutrients. And the antioxidants, phytonutrients is why we're specifically talking today about the carotenoid complex and beta guard. But those simple things there that we're looking at in terms of zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, 3 of the most important things in terms of maintaining, or basic things that we can be sure that we're taking to, or making sure we have sufficient in our body, which will keep our immune systems at a pretty good level. And then, of course, the additional things like the antioxidants and phytonutrients. And a lot of those, as we'll see, come from those colorful vegetables and fruits, which are also then supplied through these Neolife products, which we'll talk a little bit about going forward. It also plays a very critical role in the immune surveillance against cancer. And that's why having a strong immunity is a very important thing in order to prevent and reduce the risk of developing cancer. It's an overall thing, because we always, I think, very often think of it a completely different thing. It's related to genetics and so on. It's related to how resilient our body is and how strong our immunity is at the end of the day. And if we can maintain that, we can maintain a healthy body, which is resilient to, all of us have the potential risk of developing cancer, but by making sure that your immunity is good and high, you reduce that risk substantially. So looking at the Neolife Carotenoid complex, it's a broad spectrum of carotenoids from the fruits and vegetables, which are these phytonutrients that we get. And that's why I say, look at always at making sure that when you eat a sufficient colorful range of your fruits and vegetables, because those colors and so on in the fruits and vegetables are in fact your carotenoids and your flavonoids, which are these things which act as very strong antioxidants and boosting your immune response. Effectively, what it does, the carotenoid complex, is that it supports the immune response by boosting a lot of the white cell blood activity. And that's a very important part in your whole immune response in general. So you need to make sure that that's healthy and you're having sufficient of that. Our carotenoid complex contains about 15 different carotenoids, and we can go through, I mean, all of those, but it's basically, a lot of the carotenes which are related to vitamin A type products, lycopene, cis-lycopene, lutein, and zeaxanthine, which are also very important, believe it or not, for eye and optical health. And the others are all, as I say, these xanthins and capsins are different types of the carotenoids contained in the colorful pigments of the fruit and the vegetables. They're derived from things like tomatoes, carrots, spinach, peppers, strawberries, apricots, and peaches. And I think one of the important things also about Neolife products, obviously these products are grown under pretty controlled conditions, and we know then that they are healthy organic products, not a lot like a lot of the nutrients we get, which are treated with pesticides and very often genetically modified and so on. So it's a very valuable source of carotenoids and all the phytonutrients at the end of the day. And it helps us meet our daily fruit and vegetable needs. And just to consider that 30 capsules in our carotenoid complex is literally the equivalent of 115 kilograms of fruit and vegetables. So you're getting a substantial intake of all these different nutrients, the phytonutrients through the carotenoid complex. It's a substantial kick in improvement in terms of that nutrient density that you need in order to remain healthy. The other good thing about the carotenoid complex is it increases the bioavailability, or the ability for your body to absorb those phytonutrients by having olive oil and lecithin in there. So they've compounded in such a way. And just by retaining a lot of the food state stuff in our supplements, we actually absorb them a whole lot better than synthetic vitamins, which don't have all these excipients with them. They generally get rid of them, whereas with the Neolife, we have them, and it's what makes Neolife such an amazing product. It's also our carotenoid complex, and one thing for me which is very important is that it's backed by research. They've actually tested this, in the US Department of Agriculture and university researchers have actually checked this out. They've done research on it, and they can prove that it actually works at the end of the day. It's not just something somebody said. The increased natural killer cell and lymphocyte activity has been tested, and that's part of that immune response. It's important to have it, and they've shown that this actually does work in this way. It also reduces the oxidation of blood lipids and cell membranes, and that's also important from the perspective of aging, because the oxidation is what causes a lot of our aging at the end of the day, and these carotenoids and phytonutrients help prevent that and slow that down. It's been found to outperform beta carotene, and beta carotene is literally like vitamin A. That's effectively what it is. So the carotenoid complex and the phytonutrients have been proven to work a whole lot better than that, and they've basically compared, obviously, the beta carotene and the carotenoids. I just want to show you this. This is a brochure that we have available in the Neolife library about the carotenoid complex, and it's actually quite amazing if you just go through it again. There's so much information in this that it gives you, and it's just a reminder to go back and have a look at these things, that we have so much of this information available that you can go and read up. You can see a lot of the facts and the information behind it. It gives you that information. Another thing, protects the heart, defends the cells, boosts immune capacity, and it gives you just so much background information that you can use when you're promoting this. It's clinically tested and proven to, in actual fact, work at the end of the day. So go and have a look at those kind of things. There's plenty of information in the background that just, back up the things that we are trying to tell other people, and just gives you more information to share with others. Looking at the Neolife Betterguard, it's something that was developed by a guy by the name of Dr. Arthur First, who's a leading toxicologist. And the beta guard contains antioxidants and detoxifying nutrients to combat pretty much a lot of the environmental toxins that we are exposed to. So it's working in a slightly different way in a different area to like just the carotenoids. It protects us against things like heavy metals, the cadmium, lead, mercury, things that we're exposed to in a far greater amount than we I think we understand very often. Because I mean things like mercury, a lot of the small fish that we get that are, for instance, tinned and canned and supplied to us, they in fact are absorbing a fair amount of this mercury, which then comes through to us, and we then are exposed to it. It also contains things like beta carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, selenium, and B vitamins. And if you look again here, mentioned a little bit about it earlier. That and beta carotene, say we're getting like to vitamin A, vitamin C, E, zinc, and then adding things like the selenium and B vitamins. These are all things that if we provide them, it helps improve immunity for us overall and our resistance to infection and the development of disease. Beta-Guard also supports liver detox and obviously the immune response. This is very much what the Beta-Guard is about. So the mechanism of action, or how Beta-Guard actually provides a protection, is that it neutralizes and detoxifies things like airborne, waterborne, and food-based toxins. So, we have spoken a fair amount with things about pathogens. This is looking at the other toxins in our environment, which are part of that whole attack on our immune system. There's a synergistic formula that enhances the immune defense while also protecting a lot of our vital organs. And it's, that's also important because those things are responsible for keeping us healthy. It's ideal for individuals who are living in urban and industrial environments, so where they're exposed obviously to more of the external toxins. Some of the lifestyle factors also, because immunity, it's one thing to have a good nutrition, be eating well, having the supplements and so on, but it's also important to encourage people to make sure that they have balanced nutrition and that they are using supplements, or they're in fact eating well. They also need to look at things like regular, moderate exercise to support the immune circulation and to keep themselves healthy. They need to look at sleep, quality sleep. We need to have sufficient sleep, but we also need to have good sleep because, again, there's a really good book by Matt Walker about why we sleep. And in there, he helps us understand just how important sleep is. It's one of the vital components of healthy living and developing healthy immunity, because not having sufficient sleep affects so many other areas in our life. And it's really important to pay attention to that, because that's also very important as part of our recovery and allowing ourselves to recover overnight by having a good night's rest and letting the brain and the rest of the body do what it needs to do overnight through good sleep. We also need to manage things like chronic stress through being mindful, having rest, positive relationships, community, all very important for managing stress. We can often not get rid of stress totally, but we need to find ways to manage it more effectively. And then, of course, avoiding toxins as much as possible. And, they speak here really about smoking, processed foods, excessive alcohol, but there are also a lot of toxins contained in our water, contained in the clothing we wear, the deodorants we put on, and where a lot of Neolife comes in again is like, the household cleaners that we use. Those things are for Neolife, those using the Neolife products are reducing a lot of the toxins, because there's so many toxins in the normal stuff that you buy over the counter in the stores and so on. So also things to pay attention to make sure that you are resilient and your immunity is as strong as possible by reducing your body's exposure to all these external toxins and problems. And then the other thing, supporting gut health with probiotics and fiber-rich foods. Gut health is a whole thing of, people think, well, gut health, let's take these different probiotics and so on. Gut health is based on sustaining and maintaining a healthy lifestyle eating plan. And we also, we unfortunately have with Neolife in this country, because of what SAPRA and so on have made crazy decision about that we can't get hold of one of our basic probiotic, but there are other ways that we can get it, and we can actually have sufficient probiotics and prebiotics in our diets. So other Neolife products, just looking at some of the others that support these two products, the carotenoid complex and Guard, because I think it's good to be aware of. We've mentioned some of them going along, but to remember things like the vitamin C sustained release that we have. It's an antioxidant, and it also helps very strongly in helping us prevent the infections. Zinc plus that we have, it supports the immune cell function and wound healing. And a very important thing to understand about zinc is involved in so many different interactions throughout the body. It's literally like a primary thing that you need to have, very similar to vitamin D. Zinc and vitamin D are two of the most important things in terms of developing our immunity, having them available, because they're involved in so many different interactions within our bodies. So it's really important to have those things available. The garlic allium complex is also another powerful piece of our armor. It's antimicrobial, antiviral, and it's also important for heart and immune health. So it's another thing you can add to speaking to people about in terms of improving their immunity and their resilience to disease and illness. Treonine, a very important one from the perspective that it enables our cells to work better and for the transfer of nutrients across that, which then impacts very much on the mitochondrial activity. So treonine, also another very important product that can be used. I spoke a little bit about acidophilus. This is the one, obviously, with your gut microbiome. We're not able to get it here in this country at the moment, but there are different ways of getting it, and also to remember things like kefir, yogurt, and other fermented foods. Our parents, I think I particularly remember my grandmother and so on, who they had a lot of fermented foods that they made, and I too make my own kefir, yogurt, and other fermented foods, which are actually very, very important. The kefir, believe it or not, has way more contribution to your microbiome than things like yogurt. So kefir is and you can buy kefir, you can make it. It's not difficult to do. It's actually a very helpful product to know about. So why choose Neolife for immune support? And I think the things, we try and bring across, and we have spoken a lot about, is that, these things are scientifically formulated. They're whole food-based products. And the thing is, say I've used Neolife for like 25 years or so. And the reason that I have gone for Neolife is that it is what we call a food state. So, it's whole food stuff, has the various excipients that they've maintained. It's not just a synthetic thing that's been produced in a laboratory. It's something that's as close to whole food as possible, and therefore we're going to get a whole lot more out of it. That's why, having these products, it's way more economical at the end of the day, because you're actually getting benefit from it. It's not just something that's going to pass through your body and not give you benefit. They are clinically tested and backed by peer-reviewed research, which is also important. As I say, for me, coming out of the clinical research industry as well as a pharmacist, that's really important, because you can be told things, but when you have the evidence in the background as well, it's, you can feel a whole lot more confident about promoting your product at the end of the day. And they're also developed by world-class scientists. And, again, for me as a pharmacist, understanding that, we have products that are produced in the most, like we say, the GMP. So it's, good manufacturing practice. So it is, in fact, produced in such a way that it adheres to the highest standards in terms of product that can, that are safe and are produced in a reliable way consistently from sourced products that they know about. It's not, they can identify where everything comes from. So there's a lot of validity and validation to our products that we promote. And they're also free from the artificial colors, sweeteners, preservatives. And we're also exposed to so much of that in my, coaching. It's one of the things we've actually, with one of the clients, I've just come across again, this whole thing of things like preservatives and the processed foods, that last so much longer. So many of them have all these artificial things in them, which in fact are also challenges to our health and our immunity at the end of the day, and things we need to reduce. So product support for immune function, we've spoken about the Neolife Carotenoid complex, and just to go a little bit, a review and a summary of it. It's a broad spectrum phytonutrient support for our immune system. It enhances things like the activity of natural killer cells and our lymphocytes. So it's actually improving our innate immunity. It's enabling it to work better at the end of the day. Neolife Betagard, we spoke about it from the environmental perspective. It helps, detoxify environmental toxins that end up suppressing our immunity. So Betagard has a whole other role to play. It's also rich in antioxidants. It has zinc, selenium, and the B vitamin. So it's a combination of a number of those other factors which help improve and develop our immunity. Because again, immunity, people say, well, hey, let's, have immunity. You develop immunity and you maintain it. And that's why it's important to have this on a consistent basis. Eat properly, sleep well, reduce your stress, take all those challenges away, to your immunity, but also then use things like the supplements on a consistent basis, which will help you maintain your immunity. There's another product, the Neolife Fighter Defense, which also it's a brilliant product from the perspective that it has the carotenoid complex, it has the flavonoids, and it has the cruciferous extract. So a lot of your cruciferous vegetables like your cauliflowers and your broccolis and so on, which are also very important when we're trying to reduce the risk of cancer and so on. The other thing about Neolife Fighter Defense is it supports our DNA repair, also a vital thing to anti-aging and making sure we remain healthy. It improves immune cell function, and it also has detox.
Oops, I'm sure he'll come back. Because he is so wobbly there with his line.
Vitamin D also modulates both innate and adaptive responses. It's like a hormone, basically, at the end of the day. And one of the pillars, in fact, in terms of your immunity, you need to make sure that you have vitamin D and sufficient vitamin D on an ongoing basis if you don't get enough sun, particularly. Vitamin C also, again, just to reiterate, protects against oxidative stress and enhances our immune defense at the end of the day. Another product that we have in our arsenal is this omega-3. And that supports resolution of inflammation because it's strong anti-inflammatory and cell membrane health, and vital for both brain and cardiac health at the end of the day in the long term. And we have one of the best omega-3s around because it contains all 8, and it also is one of those that we know is not going to be rancid when we get it, like some of the others that are purchased in pharmacies and other places. Again, just to reiterate some of those lifestyle foundations for a strong immunity: have a balanced, nutrient-dense diet with whole foods and antioxidants, and we can support that obviously with our various supplements that we have, like the carotenoid complex and the Betagard. Have consistent sleep, quality sleep for hormonal balance and cell repair. And Bjorn spoke last week about the whole thing with male health, hormonal balance for both males and females, in fact, is really important. To your sleep is vitally important. Need to make sure we get some daily physical activity, and that supports our lymphatic and circulatory health at the end of the day. So some of those further ones, we spoke also about the stress reduction techniques. Just be mindful of that. We don't understand how harmful stress is at the end of the day. Gut health, on an ongoing basis, we need to make sure that we protect that and keep our guts as healthy as possible. And then another very important addition to this whole thing is the circadian rhythm alignment, making sure that we get sufficient exposure to natural light and being consistent about our sleep, getting up in the morning. I try and do it where I get out and I actually watch the sunrise, every morning, basically watch it. And then because it controls, again, your hormonal levels and how healthy your system can be at the end of the day. All things that add to improving your immunity. And then, of course, the mitochondrial health. We need to pay attention to that because that's the essence of life. That's what gives us our energy at the end of the day. things like exercise, our CoQ10, TRNN, and the antioxidant-rich foods, the supplements we've spoken about in terms of carotenoid and beta-GARD are just so important for all of that. So that's basically a lot of the stuff, as I say, related to the carotenoid complex, the beta-GARD, and our immunity, but just some ideas in terms of reinforcing how we can promote and share our products is obviously sharing of personal stories and testimonials, something that Monica speaks a lot about and which we are encouraged to do all the time. Educate your clients about hidden immune challenges. So, they don't understand very often about the pollution, the stress, the various toxins they're exposed to, and how important immunity is. Speak to them about it so that they understand. Use visual tools like the food comparison charts. And so much of this is actually available in our libraries and resources that we've got. And, we can share that with people. You need to look at things like offering seasonal immune bundles, particularly this time we're moving to spring. There's lots of change in the weather. It's up and down. Immunity is important, and we can share that kind of stuff with people that they need to be building that and working on it. Host webinars or wellness events focusing on immune education, and then, use social media reels, which I'm now beginning to use more and more now that I understand and can use AI a whole lot better. Use those things. We have those things available, but we need to highlight and let people understand the value and the benefit of our products at the end of the day. So yeah, that's, I think, a whole lot about those various products and about immunity itself in general. I'm happy to say, to answer any questions if anybody has picked up anything they want to chat or ask about. But yeah, I hope that's been helpful. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much, Bobby, for sharing with us today.
That's been awesome, Bobby. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
I think this video is definitely one to watch again, because there's a whole lot of information that you shared there with us, and and I'm sure it'd be great for us to also share this with other people, so that people are aware of the products that we've got and what very high level that they set at. And I think also your tips at the end there to keep sharing with people. That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
Thanks, Monica, for that accolade for Bob. You're allowed to talk,
Right?
No, Monica Dewey just shared an accolade there on the chat here. Sometimes she does talk.
Okay.
And how are you going, Meryl?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Just a bit rainy here, Ladysmith, and cold. Thanks and credit to Bobby for an excellent talk. That was really, really good. There are some people in Australia I'm hoping to send it to, and the one young lady is a varsity student, and I invited her for today. Sadly, she couldn't make it, but I'll send it to her. But I'm trusting she will be with us 2:15 in the afternoon next Saturday. By the way, what's the program for next Saturday? Do you know at this stage?
Oh, now you're asking me a serious question. I'll talk to Monica when she lands.
Yeah, we must actually put it out because we pretty much know what it is, I think. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. When she's landed, I'll talk to her, and then also we'll share it on the group. Okay, so I'll just stop the